Hi there, welcome back to A Well-Purposed Woman. Today I'm going to show you how to make DIY sock girl gnomes. So the last video I showed you how to just make a basic sock gnome that takes about 10 to 15 minutes really to make these cute little guys. And today we're going to learn how to make the sock girl gnomes, which are super cute. This is just a basic boot sock underneath here, and it's transformed into a little DIY sock girl gnome. So they're super cute and super easy to make. So we're gonna get started with that today. So I'm gonna move them out of the way here. Again, we're gonna start by using a sock. And this, I just have a low cut ankle sock. You can use a longer boot sock and just cut off a portion of it. But really this is the amount of sock that you need for the body. So we're gonna start by filling our sock. And I usually use about a half a cup of rice, and that will give your gnome a nice weighted bottom. So you're gonna fill it with the rice. And then next you're gonna use the Polyfil and then just fill in the rest of the sock to give your gnome a nice plump body. I'm gonna use a little bit more Polyfil. Part of the body fills in the bottom of the hat, so I'm gonna do a nice filling. And I've made so many that I kind of just eye it, and when I like the shape of the body, then I go with it. But you're gonna fill it just until the sock is about, this is an ankle sock, so the ankle sock is about half full, so kind of like this. And then to tie off this, you could use embroidery thread and needle and go through there to pinch it off, but I'm actually just going to use a hair tie today. I have 3 girls, so we have lots of hair ties laying around. You can use a rubber band or anything that you have to tie off your sock. And I've stopped using the needle and thread because the rubber band is so much easier. And it works just as well, honestly, because this part goes inside of the top of the hat. I mean the bottom of the hat. So once you have your sock tied off, then you're just gonna cut off any extra on the top. Make sure you have enough so that the rubber band doesn't come out. And then the next step after the sock is filled is to make your hat. And I do have a pattern for that below, and I've used this pattern for many gnomes. It's just a basic cone triangle shape, but the pattern's helpful because then you know exactly the dimensions to use to get a nice sized gnome hat. These gnomes end up being about 15 inches tall, which is a nice size for them. They sit nice on a shelf or a table. I like to use just leftover fabric I have. This minky fabric is leftover from a baby blanket I made, and try to use an edge to use up as much fabric as I can. So I'm just gonna roughly cut this out. You could pin it in place. It's really not necessary, so I'm just gonna cut it here. But if you're not as comfortable, it's definitely an option. Just pin the pattern on top and cut it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's why I'm okay with just doing it this way. And mine definitely aren't perfect, so but I'm okay with that. And then the next step is to seal up your hat. And I usually just take this over to the sewing machine and run a stitch along the edge here. If you don't know how to sew or you don't have a sewing machine, then I'm going to show you how you can just do it with a hot glue gun. I might actually take off this edge here because it's dark and I don't want it to show up. So I'm going to quickly do that. So now I have the basic gnome hat shape. I'm going to fold it right sides together. And then when you have it nice and lined up, take your hot glue gun, and you're just gonna run it along the straight edge here. I actually do find it a little easier to sew it, but If you don't have a sewing machine, then this works just as well. Or almost as well, I would say. The seam is a little cleaner and nicer, but this works, so we're gonna go with it. Now that you have your sock filled, you have your hat made, now we're gonna stuff the hat, and I put a little polyfill in there to start, but I'm just gonna fill up the rest of the hat with polyfill. And you can use a pencil, you can use a little wooden dowel to stuff it up. And then just go ahead and try it on your body and see what it looks like. And it should kind of be taking shape, kind of similar to the shape that you're gonna want it in the end. So yeah, that looks pretty good. When you make the girl gnome, the secret is to use chunky braided yarn because you already have a braid in place. So it's really pretty handy for the girl gnomes, and you're not going to need a lot of it. I would say an inch or two of the braid, and that's good. So what I do is I take these little plastic ties and just tie it on the bottom, so it's kind of like the bottom of the braid. And then when I cut the yarn on the other side, I just also use another piece of plastic to hold that in place. So I'm going to go grab that, and then in the center of the hat, I like to use a little wooden dowel to kind of keep the hat upright, and you can use however much of it you want. If I have extra from the hat, I like to just shove it into the body. And if you used a rubber band, this usually works okay. Just put it through. I did it kind of tight, so I might loosen it up just a tad. Stick in the dowel. And then you just kind of got to shift it around until it goes to the bottom. And then you can kind of play with it. So this is going to be too tall. So I'm going to cut off a piece of that wooden dowel. So I'm just going to trim this a little bit. Whoop! So it's not as taking up as much space in my gnome. Then I'm going to shove it to the bottom. And I'm actually going to use a little more polyfill in my hat. And then I just poke that through the hat, and that will keep the gnome's hat nice and upright. And if you don't want it in there, you actually don't need it. The polyfill does kind of hold up the hat well on its own, or you can use wire. I've used wire to make like a curvy hat. So just get your hat in place. Now I'm going to take out a little bit of the polyfill because it's actually pushing up the hat too much. But once you have it in place, then the next step is to take your braids and place them on your hat. So I am going to cut, like I mentioned, I tied off the ends with the plastic ties. And then you can do the same thing when you cut off the other side. So I'm going to cut this in half, making equal braids. And it's just a couple inches, you can see. And then that's going to get tucked underneath the hat. And I'm going to glue that in place. And I'm going to do that right now so that these braids don't come undone. So just do it on both sides of your girl gnome. And you can actually put the hat right over it. And I actually like to tuck the hat or the edge of the hat in a little bit. Just hold it in place. And then do the same thing with the other side. So you can kind of start gluing around the hat. Pull the hat down a tad and just keep gluing around. And then put the other braid on the other side. I hope I didn't go too far there. I think that's okay. Just put another bit of glue. Put the other braid in place. And then just hold them down. I like to push down really well to make sure it stays in place. There. Now we have our basic girl gnome frame minus the nose. So the next step is to put on your nose. And that you're just going to put in the center of the girl. So I just like to put a big drop of hot glue, always being careful not to burn yourself with it, and then press down on the nose. And I press down really well on the nose as well. There, so now we have our basic girl, and wasn't that easy with the chunky yarn? So the last thing you can do with the girl gnomes are embellish them. I like to use lace or different things, maybe drape it over the nose a little bit, or just kind of give them a feminine little touch. So I like to drape lace over the edge, so I will just cut off some lace here and do that. And again, I just hot glue all this stuff in place. Might not be, you could sew it in place before you put it on the gnome. That would actually be probably an even better idea, but I am just gonna hot glue it because that's what I am showing you, how to do this without sewing. So just kind of glue it in place. Just follow the edge. And adding this ribbon and lace is nice because it can cover up some of that glue or imperfections in the edge of the hat that maybe happened as a result of hot gluing. And just go along till you get to the starting. And when they match, just cut off any extra. Or when they meet, I should say, not match. Again, being careful with the hot glue. There, and now we have our little basic girl gnome. Now to put her in a dress, I like to use another sock. And I have a different boot sock here that was just cut off for something else. And you can just use that as a little apron. You can use, this is an old sweater sock. I'm actually gonna try this one out. See if I like how that looks. Might be too much pink, but we're gonna give it a try. So just stuff the little body into the sock. And you're just giving her a little apron. And it's kind of cute because then it comes up to the nose. And you can just cut off the bottom and again, glue it in place. And then you could use lace or other things. I don't really like the lace, but on this little girl, I actually just made a pocket from a different sock and then used a button and lace. So I can show you that as well, but I think for her, I'm just gonna cut this off. And that's gonna be her little outfit. So just turn it upside down, hot glue the center there. And then I just kind of fold in the sides of the sock. Oops. Might need a little bit more hot glue here. And then you can see she has a little outfit on. And on the bottom of this one, I did put a little felt heart. So you could do that, but as you can see now she's really taking shape and she's really getting cute. So I wanted to just show you how you can finish up your little gnome girl. This was the sock gnome we made earlier. I added a little heart to it, and I was going to show you if you want to make a set, like a boy and a girl gnome together, a cute way to do that is to tie in something similar from one of the gnomes to the other. So I just made this little felt heart, these felt hearts out of some light pink felt, and they match, and they are kind of this thing that draws the two together. So you could just go ahead and put a little heart on her, and then she would match him nicely. If you wanted to make like a pocket like this gnome has, I can just show you quickly how I did that as well. So what I did was I actually just took a sock, like I used the other part of this sock for something else, but I just took a sock and I just folded it and kind of cut off a chunk of it. Just cut off a little chunk, and then I just glued it on to the front here, tucked in the sides, and then glued it around. You can kind of, I might trim a little bit more off. I think there's a little much. And you can add some lace to match the other part of her hat, which I think I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna tuck in a little bit of lace on here to, you can get, this is the part where you can get creative and really make it however you want. Just gonna have, ouch, gotta be careful with the hot glue. I don't know how many times I've burnt myself. I really need to get some silicone gloves, or I've mentioned that numerous times. And then just glue it on there on the side. So I kind of fold the side in. And then fold the other side. Ooh, that was not smart. And then you see how you're kind of getting the little pocket for the apron. And then you can just turn it down here and then glue the bottom part on. And again, I kind of tuck in the edge so that the fabric isn't showing. And I'll probably touch that up a little bit, but I'll just to show you. And then just take a button and glue it on in the center. So that is a little pocket on our girl gnome. And then since she is a complement pair to that other gnome with the heart, I'm gonna add the pink heart to her hat as well. So then I'll show you the set. So now you have your boy and girl gnome. And this part down here, I'm going to touch it up after I shut the video off. But if you have any questions, just let me know. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you come again and we can do more crafting together.